George Floyd was subjected to. We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Mary,
That's
who
the same.
says, yes, I just laid on the floor prone, put my hands behind my back to mimic being handcuffed, and checked my breathing response. It was uncomfortable. I couldn't imagine if I would have survived if I had three grown men kneeling on me. Imran, this is an interesting issue, but at the end of the day, it may not matter what the jury would think about that opinion.
Right. Well, Vinny, listen. It's an interesting issue, but would a healthy person have also passed away under the restraint that we see in George Floyd? Now, listen, I really think that it is a totality of circumstances. I do not necessarily agree, and I'm no expert, but I do not necessarily agree with this expert witness's opinion that a healthy person would have passed under the circumstances. That being said, I have never been in that circumstance, so I'm speaking completely out of speculation. I have never been with three men on the ground on top of me, so I'm not speaking like this 13th juror responded with some sort of testing it out myself. But I do think that it's a totality of circumstances. I think that the health conditions, perhaps the drug use, had a contributing factor. But I do not believe George Floyd would have passed away if it wasn't for that 9 minutes and change where he was.
They should have left him in the fucking squad car.
And there was
What they should have
compression on
done.
his neck, and that is what put him over the edge. And to
They should have left him in the
Dr.
squad car. They
Baker's,
got him out of the
testimony,
squad car.
It was just
If
too
he would have
much
died in the squad
that
car with his
George
handcuffed,
Floyd
and
could
it
not
would
take
have
it.
been
That's what caused
no
his death.
big deal.
Libby tonight, yes, because concrete doesn't expand up and down like a mattress would. Pressed face down and body down on concrete and being smothered like that, I would have died as well.
Then they should have left him in the squad
Michelle?
car.
You know,
I would have never let him out of the
the
squad
fact
car.
that the expert said that almost injected an issue that ultimately I think the prosecution wouldn't want to be an issue, because Dr. Baker came in the next day and said, well, it wasn't just the restraint, it was the heart, it couldn't take it. There are contributing factors here.
I mean, it did. In some ways, it highlighted the fact that George Floyd is not a perfectly healthy person. But most people who are murdered or killed are not perfectly healthy. And I think that's really where, if they do bring in that evidence, I don't think it's come in yet, of his arrest the year before and how he was treated by officers. If I was the state, I would have a heyday with that evidence, ultimately, even though I don't want it in, because I would say, but he didn't die that time, because the officers' actions were different. And that's what I think they're going to do with that evidence. And I think it comes down to that issue.
Lachelle tonight, yes, because a healthy person can die if they are strangled to death and can't breathe. Humans need oxygen to live. With or without it, our organs stop working, and then we die. Brian, the fact that the expert, the pulmonologist, went that one step further, do you think in any way that can end up being used against the prosecution by the defense when they bring their experts in?
Absolutely. The prosecution went into it way too far. We all know that a knee on the neck is not a lethal weapon. And we all know that a strong man, a 200-something pound man without those health conditions would not have died. And common sense tells us that. People have gotten their knees, had knees put on their necks many times, they didn't die. But the defense cannot blame the victim. They cannot blame George Floyd for not being healthy. And so the defense really can't use that to their advantage, but the prosecution needs to watch out, because the jury may see right through that and say, hey, these guys going too far, they're a little biased here. But clearly, a knee on the neck is not a lethal weapon.
And we'll finish tonight with Tracy, who says, yes, anyone can die with a lack of oxygen. And ultimately, I guess the question here becomes, Imran, what caused that lack of oxygen? So you got to take it one more step further. We have about 10 seconds here.
What caused that lack of oxygen? Well, I'm going to go with the knee on the neck, Vinny. And I think the prosecution's doing a pretty good job in building up that evidence.
All right. Well, you guys did a great job tonight. Imran Ansari, Michelle Simpson-Teagle, and Brian Watkins. Great to have you with us on this Friday night. Come back soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's check back in with Julie Janae, who has a look ahead to what's in store for next week. Julie.
Vinny, coming up on Monday, the state is going to be calling more witnesses to the stand. We understand that they have still a medical and use of force expert on their list, in addition to members of George Floyd's family who are going to bring that spark of life testimony, telling this jury about who he was to his family, to the people in his community as a human being. And also, we know that the judge is expected to rule on the issue of Maurice Hall, the passenger in Floyd's vehicle. The defense wants to call him as a witness, even though that witness has indicated he's going to plead the fifth. The judge wants to hear the questions that the defense has for Hall first.
All right, wow, the family of George Floyd, that would be the way to finish this trial and wrap it all up for prosecutors. That would be a brilliant move. Julie Janae, great week of work. Get some rest this weekend. Back to work on Monday.
Pretty sad when the guy that was sitting in the car with you won't testify on his trial. That's pretty damaging.
Why do you say that? Why? Because it looks bad on him?
Me and Josh were in a car. And we got pulled over. Yeah.
Why, if you had to go to court, say you were in the car with someone, say you were in the vehicle with someone and you had to go to court for them, you were
I'm there, I know exactly what happened from
start to finish.
Start to finish.
You would testify on. You would testify on what you saw happen.
I would testify, but he will not testify because he's guilty of giving them drugs. They call them drugs.
But not only that, but also
plus Maurice, whatever his name is.
Didn't you say he was on? Didn't you say he was convicted of another? Like they were thinking.
Fled. The day of that happened, he fled to Texas. And he got arrested by the Texas Rangers.
No, he got by the state troopers in Texas.
Yes.
Wherever they call the state, I should say the state police, whatever they call in Texas.
Texas Rangers.
But whatever, the state arrested him basically.
So they put a warrant out for arrest because he flew back to Texas that day. Or the next morning. And he fucking tried to hide, and the Texas Rangers followed him.
Yeah, but why would you flee to Texas though?
So that's where they're from.
Yeah, but that's not the place you flee though. Wouldn't you flee somewhere else?
He should have went to Mexico.
No, you could have also